Doubles and Coffee, 5 years, 5 long years. Your refinery that belongs to you, to your children, to your family, to your future generations, was closed down by Keith Christopher Rowley. Yes, by Keith Christopher Rowley on his own volition, his own reasoning, his own rationale. His lies included that the board of Petrotrin that he had replaced, the new board headed by Winifred Espinay, had advised the cabinet and the government and the prime minister to close down Petrotrin. Winifred Espinay went under oath in the labor court and said he and his board of Petrotrin did no such thing. Why did Rowley lie? Why did Rowley close down your refinery, the People's Refinery that had existed since 1908? A refinery that employed 5,324 monthly paid workers. Also, 6,112 temporary or daily paid workers, plus contractors who received contracts around the work of Petrotrin, who employed people, sometimes 10 and 20 per company, plus the fence line communities that are decimated because of the lack of injection of money and salaries, the taxes that would be received from those Petrotrin workers in advance, because their taxes used to come out of their salary beforehand, before they got their money. The sort of decimation that has taken place not only in Trinidad and Tobago, the Southwest Peninsula, in our entire future generations, the access to increased savings through the Heritage and Stabilization Fund, the decimation of our U.S. reserves, over $2 billion US per year by 5 years, 10 billion US for you, the citizens, for you, the businessmen, for you, SMEs, to be able to access foreign exchange. Keith Christopher Rowley, one man, made the decision to shut down, lock down, and break down our refinery, and just says he decided we are out of the refining business, while opportunities abound nearby. In Guyana, with a refinery, we could have been negotiating with Guyana for increased shares, for collaboration. Why? Why did Keith Christopher Rowley shut down the refinery, which is now closed and just about scrap iron value? Because anyone in the oil industry you speak to will tell you that a refinery that has been shut for so long, the amount it will take to restart it, to change every single pipe, every single valve, every single screw, every single thing, would be almost impossible. That's why there are no offers. And Rowley's personal lawyer, who's now in charge of the assets, Rowley's lawyer, personal lawyer, who, if asked about what he and Rowley talk about, would be winning his legal rights to say, I cannot, because that's my client, and that falls under attorney-client privilege. So he can't even shed light on why did Rowley shut down our country's Petrotrin refinery. But remember, just before the shutdown of Petrotrin, the refinery, and the ensuing debacle and lies and concoctions and mammagisms of the most powerful union in the history of the Caribbean, the OWTU, where Rowley and Imbert pretended that they were going to sell the refinery to Patriotic Energies, and that 700 million cash had been offered, and Imbert and Rowley didn't want cash. 700 million for the refinery. They gave them 11 years to pay it off if they wanted, and concocted a ridiculous deal. But then the U.S. Coast Guard happened to be in the Caribbean Sea, and 2 drug shipments of 150 to 160 million US was found. Billions of dollars of cocaine. And we also found out about a boat that came into Petrotrin, a ship, and then they turned off its transponder, and it ended up in Palo Alto, Venezuela, with over 196 barrels of fuel. And we found out that the PNM under Rowley was making a deal with Venezuela through Wilmer Ruperti, the main man of Chavez and Maduro, to bring in fuel that was Wilmer Ruperti's own from Trafigura PTE and so-called sell it. Just basically give it some clean paperwork in Trinidad and Tobago at Point-a-Pair, and then ship it to Venezuela and offload it while they were under sanctions. And that was only one shipment, and the reason we found out about that was the U.S. Coast Guard could track any vessel, whether transponder on or transponder off. And then we heard the lies from Stuart Smallpen Young, promoted by Asha Javid, about the clause in the contract that says if you happen to do any business with a country under sanction, that the deal is off. But this clause only appeared and was renegotiated 24 days after the shipment had gone. And I asked then Franklin Khan, Minister of Energy in the Senate, for that month of April in 2020, how much fuel came in that similar fashion to that vessel that the U.S. followed? And the answer was 1.2 million barrels. That was what was ROWLEY's plan, the Newman George plan, and they got scuttled. Then we saw the debacle of 4 divers dying in a pipeline, being left to die for 39 hours while they knew they were alive, because one diver had come out and given information, proof of life. And somehow, only in Trinidad and Tobago, Coast Guard officials, Newman George, Paria officials, government officials said, do nothing, leave them to death. Why were they fixing that pipeline that had done nothing for 4 years, that had been decommissioned? Why were they doing work on it? For what reason? All of these questions have to be asked. Why did Keith Rowley shut down your refinery when there was no advice to suggest shutting down the refinery? The government of Trinidad and Tobago, your government, the people, money, paid $64 million to experts to suggest, to consult, and to recommend the way forward for Petrotrin. And all 3 reports, McKinley report, the Lashley report, and the Solomon report, $64 million of reports said not to shut down, to restructure, to make it more lean and mean, to cut costs here and there, but never to shut down. The board of Petrotrin said don't shut down. So why did Keith Christopher Rowley shut down the refinery? Think back just before the shutdown, about 11 months before, Kamla Prasad Bissessa came out and made it abundantly clear that the PNM previous board and the PNM previous minister, Oliveri, the member of parliament for Labre down there, who summarily was fired by Rowley, had undertaken an audit into excess oil capacity coming out miraculously. Franklin Khan had gone in the parliament and boasted that a certain company that was very friendly to Rowley, and Rowley said, that is my friend, had just been, they were mashing up the place like Usain Bolt, because the increases in productivity was so, they were earth-shattering. But then there was an audit, 3 audits were done, and the board was eventually fired for actually doing the right thing and auditing and asking, but are these numbers real? Is this imaginary? Is this a fantasy? Is this fake oil? Then Winfred Espinet's board was coming and they were doing the same thing. But then Rowley shut down Petrotrin. And not only shut down Petrotrin, fired all the workers. He also fired the security Petrotrin. If you shut down a plant and you want it to be safe, who better to keep the plant safe than the existing security who know where everything is, who have their books, their files, their records, and everything would be in place? No, that wasn't enough for Rowley. They had to get rid of all of that security. So let me say the police wanted to take statements and evidence and get logbooks about who went, who was in charge, what car went, to try and check and look at where all this miracle oil was coming from. Could the police find these people? No, they were fired and gone and replaced by a friend of the PNM, amalgamated, and your refinery is still shut down. The patriotic energy is still dreaming about some 700 million. Now it was just a coincidence that 700 million US was the exact same figure that Wilmer Ruperti and Maduro had allocated from PDVSA to bunker oil all over the world to breach sanctions, to break sanctions, to circumvent sanctions. That exact figure, and they had been found out. But yet there was no money. Where was Petrotrin? Where was OWTU going to get all of that money, plus the 1.6 to $2 billion to restart a refinery? The lies continued. Rowley continued to lie, and Rowley's ministers, included Taipans and Rawi Smallpin, and even Franklin Can, deceased, started to say that Petrotrin was a drain on the treasury and the taxpayer and so on. Fishermen and Friends of the Sea got a freedom of information and so showed that the PNM lied, that Petrotrin was not getting any subvention whatsoever in the last 3 years of its existence from the PNM government. Blatant Franco-ment lies. The reason that Petrotrin had a debt structure and was making a loss was the PNM, the Malcolm Jones, the World GTL, the executive chairman who made those decisions, and then the PNM, Rowley and Smallpin. Smallpin was Malcolm Jones' lawyer, and Al-Rawi took Malcolm Jones out of court, where Ann and Ram Logan had him in court to get back £100 million of your money. This is the web of information and evidence. Why did Rowley shut down Petrotrin when everybody said, don't shut it down? When so many workers, 11,000 workers, when fence line communities, when the whole country would suffer, why did Keith Rowley shut it down? And some of the answer could be linked to his friend. Rowley, the Prime Minister, admitted that the man who was accused of having excesses of oil coming out miraculously when a PNM candidate for Separia formerly, who get beat by Kamala Dioki Singh, who they can't find nowhere, happened to be the man who was there to check how much barrels. Yeah, good, plenty barrels. PNM to PNM by PNM with Rowley. The man was also, his daughter was a senator, appointed and selected by Rowley to be in the Senate and the government of Trinidad and Tobago. This man, when Rowley cheated and called an election in the height of COVID, when people could not come home to vote on August 10, 2020, when the results came out and Rowley had scraped a victory by 2,600 votes in 2 marginal seats in the East-West corridor, this man was seen bareback, nearly naked, whining and singing on a video that he wanted to make Stuart Young his wife. He was using racial epithets on the euphoria he was feeling and the love and the passion for Rowley. Why? We also saw that this arbitration with Rowley's friend, and Rowley didn't recuse himself from overseeing. He admitted to you, that's my friend, and he stayed there to handle it. And when the process went forward to arbitration, Senior Counsel Deborah Peake said, appeal the matter. And Rowley's own personal lawyer said, no, we're taking advice from junior attorneys. And they did not appeal the matter, but they appeal a child who's sick and crippled, a child differently able. Rowley and them appealed that to not pay the child, to give him some sort of help and assistance going forward because of Zika and poor health care. But the appeal, Rowley whining racial epithet friend who was dancing and celebrating the PNM victory like he loved Stuart Smallpin, he young, like hog, love mud. They didn't appeal that. And what did Rowley friend get? Wow, 118 million of your money, taxpayer money, plus Rowley government give him a 10-year increased contract worth nearly 800 million possibly. Yes, and this Rowley friend had also won a tender for the vessel when they were replacing the Superfast Galicia. And some smart PNM, they might have won on a boat. But how this man could win a tender and he didn't even put in a boat? But Petrotrin shut down. People have told, insiders and PNM have said, a certain man told Rowley, if I go down, you go down, we all go down. And Petrotrin shut down. So Keith Christopher Rowley, your bald-head, pathological, heartless, obsessive, tyrannical, miscreant, disgusting human being, Answer now, Keith Rowley. Why did you shut down Petrotrin 5 years now and suffer this country, all of our future generations, our people, black, Indian, and all between? Why, Keith Rowley? Espine did not tell you. Oliveri was fired. Your first Petrotrin board was fired. You, in the McKinsey report, the Lashley report, the Solomon report, no one said shut down Petrotrin. Why, Keith Rowley, did you shut down Petrotrin? Tell your boy take off his jersey and dance. Tell your friend dance and celebrate your reassumption to the office of Prime Minister. And Keith Rowley, they have a special place for you just now. Just now.